Good morning, and this one's a little bit of a departure for me because I don't usually talk about these kind of issues, mainly because my channel is primarily about games and gameplay and all the rest of it, and the video game industry. However, outside of my YouTube channel, I am somebody who gets interested about virtually everything, and some news stories do grab me, and there's been a few times when I've wanted to talk about various issues and I've kind of backed off from them, partly because I want to keep my channel along the lines of where it's going, but also because there's issues with YouTube and demonetization when you start to get into real issues. And this is a real issue. It's a really important issue, and it's to do with racism. This all comes about because of what happened with Liam Neeson this week, and the interview he gave in which he talked about how when a friend of his was raped, he felt the need to try and go and do something about it. And he, well, in effect, had some extremely dubious thoughts and ideas. The idea of taking an individual who committed a crime and expanding that out to a group of people, in this case, black people. And he came clean and said, look, you know, it was horrendous. It was 40 years ago. I had these thoughts. They were horrendous. I'm paraphrasing him, obviously. Go and watch the interview. Make up your own mind. But he basically admitted that it was a wrong way to feel. But it was the way he felt. And I watched John Barnes on YouTube as well. It was from Sky, I believe, an interview he gave with Sky, saying that Liam Neeson should get a medal for being honest. And, well, I don't think he should get a medal. I do think that we shouldn't be vilifying him. And we should be, on some level at least, praising him for being upfront about how he felt at that time. Because somebody else said something on Twitter, and they were actually criticizing him at the time, but he said, or she, I think it was, said that in order to, you know, solve the issue of something like this, we need to first admit it. So, you know, we need to admit we're racist if we want to move on from that. Now, I kind of agree with that. I think that if you're going to, you know, deal with these issues, then you need to first admit that there's an issue, either with you personally or with society. And we all know that there's an issue with racism within society. And we all know that some individuals are racist. I would say, for my money though, not knowing the guy, what Liam Neeson said doesn't make him a racist. It makes him a human being, because you only have to have a basic understanding of psychology to know that we all suffer from this in-group, out-group mentality. We are still tribal. We are still basically monkeys that have come down out of the trees and learnt to use tools. But we still have those prejudices deep inside us. And this is something that John Barnes said as well. And for those who don't know, John Barnes was a British footballer who had a horrendous amount of racism thrown at him from the terraces when he was playing football. And he was one of the best footballers in this country. And people were trying to suggest that John Barnes wasn't as good a footballer for England because he wasn't really English, because he was black, which is patent bullshit. That was racism. John Barnes was one of the best players of his generation, and he played for his country, and he played proudly for his country. And I'm getting off topic here, but when he comes out and says he doesn't think Liam Neeson's racist, I think you should probably listen to the guy. He's dealt with real racists. Anyway, moving on from this, let's talk a minute about this in-group and out-group thing. Liam Neeson admitted that he had this idea that he took the individual and expanded it out. He was looking for anybody who was black. It was wrong. Obviously, it was a wrong thing to do. But as I said before, it is something that we have in our psyche. And, you know, when a person online says that all white men are evil, as a result of this, I actually saw someone tweet that they thought that, you know, this just proved that all white men were racists. Well, they're doing exactly what Liam Neeson did in his mind. Okay, they're not going out trying to look for trouble, but they're doing the same thing in their head. They're going from the specific to the general. They're taking one person and they're expanding that out. So if they're going to call Liam Neeson a racist for taking the idea that there was an individual black guy that committed a rape and therefore all black people were a target, if they're going to take that and then they're going to look at what Liam Neeson said and they're going to extrapolate from what Liam Neeson said to say that all white men are racists, what is going on inside their head is precisely what was going on inside Liam Neeson's head. And this kind of thinking is what leads us down these dark paths. The first thing we need to do, as I said before, is we need to look at ourselves. We need to understand that this tribalism is in us. But something else is also in us. We have the intellect, the capability to get beyond that. And this is why when we get out there and we meet black people and we meet gay people and we meet Jewish people and we meet transgender people and we find out that, hey, they're people, we stop thinking of them as the other. We start to think of them more as individual people. People that we can be friends with, people that we can maybe marry, people that, you know, we can go out and party with, whatever it might be. They are people. Not a group, but people. An individual black guy can be a complete arsehole. An individual white guy can be a complete arsehole. A lesbian can be a complete arsehole. You name it, any number of groups contain individuals who you'd probably want to drown yourself rather than spend an evening with. Because, as I say, they are arseholes. That doesn't mean that everybody who belongs to that group, and this idea of us belonging to groups, while we kind of do belong to groups, they're not the thing that defines us entirely. You know, if you're black or you're white or you're gay or you're straight, these are aspects of your psyche, they're aspects of your individuality, but they are not you. They are part of you. And your culture informs who you are, but it's only a part of who you are. And let's be honest, Liam Neeson is no different to anyone else. He grew up in a society where there would have been racism in that period. I mean, I was coming up through the 80s and I spent time with people who were, well, for want of a better word, Nazis. They were extreme racists. And I actually stood outside a village hall disco. Yeah, I lived an exciting life. I spent some time at disco with a friend of mine. And when we left, we were in fear for our lives. And why were we in fear for our lives? Well, he was black and I was, and I quote, a traitor to my race. I didn't really have the opportunity to explain to the people who were telling me that I was a traitor to my race that we're actually all part of the same race, because they were too busy thinking about how they were going to rearrange my face. But when you come out of an environment like that, sometimes that environment informs the way you are. And when you're not thinking, when you're in a circumstance that is extreme, you maybe tip over the edge and engage in thoughts and behavior that you wouldn't otherwise engage in when you're thinking clearly. And what Liam Neeson did was a classic example of that, of the way somebody will dive back into those kind of prejudices and those ideas under extreme circumstances. But that doesn't make him a racist any more than it makes the black guy who wants to kill white people because his sister was raped by a white guy. He may have those thoughts. There may be a moment where he has those thoughts and he wants to do that. And, he could follow that down the path of becoming a racist. Whether you be white, whether you be black, if you decide to follow a route whereby you're attacking anybody else who is of the other group, the out group, the other, then yeah, that's prejudice and that is racism. But Liam Neeson didn't do that. What Liam Neeson did is he spent a week looking for trouble, and as he said, luckily didn't find any. And then he had to reassess, and he took a step back from the precipice. And then he started to feel ashamed. And that was a process. And he could have been unlucky, and if he'd have found someone and hurt them, they would have been even more unlucky. It would have been a horrendous circumstance to come out of, another horrendous situation, the rape that led to this. But he took a step back, he reassessed, and he realised that what he was doing was wrong, and he was ashamed of it. That's not a racist. A racist revels in it. Unless, there is an element of unconscious racism. And as I said before, that is in all of us. It doesn't matter whether you're white. It doesn't matter whether you're black. It doesn't matter whether you're a woman, lesbian, gay, straight, whatever. We all have our prejudices. But it's using that thing upstairs, that brain of ours, to realise these thoughts aren't productive and they are dangerous. And that at the end of the day, when you come round to realising that actually people are just like you, they may have a slightly different culture, they may have a slightly different skin colour, but they are not to be grouped with the guy who beat up your friend, or the guy who put the guy in hospital because he was going out with a black girl, which actually happened. And I'm sure it's happened in many communities throughout the world. Racists are evil. When somebody actively engages in racist acts, that is an evil thing to do. Somebody who has racist thoughts steps back from them, steps back from the brink and says, oh, wait, hold on a minute. This is not right. What I'm doing here, this is wrong. How's that racist? Seriously. And to come out and admit it, I actually think this is a good thing, because what he's done is he's shown that he's had these thoughts, but he's able to move beyond them. And I think that is a moment that we can take and we can learn from. As I say, and I keep saying it, we all have these thoughts. The trick is to realise what they are, to take them for what they are. The number of times, and I've seen people, I've had friends where this has happened, where they start off as reasonable human beings and they end up going down the rabbit hole because something happens that leads them on a dark path, and they end up in a place which they find it really hard to get back from. And it's not helpful when you vilify someone who is trying to get beyond that. It doesn't do anybody any good when you vilify somebody who is saying, look, this is how I thought. I realise it was wrong. I'm not thinking like that these days. That was 40 years ago, for crying out loud. Let me put something to you. I'm not a Christian, but there's a saying within Christianity: let he without sin cast the first stone. So tell me this. Have you ever not had a negative thought about somebody? Have you ever not want to go out and kick the crap out of somebody because of something they've done? Have you never had any of those thoughts? The people we should be worried about, the people we should be vilifying, aren't people like Liam Neeson who come out and say they realise that these things are wrong and we need to do something about it. The people we need to be worried about are the people who will go out, kick your head in, and then brag about it down the pub to their mates. And those who don't talk about it and hide it and pretend they're not racist but really are, whether they be black, white, whatever. I don't understand why people are vilifying someone for being honest and for accepting that he did something wrong. And, acknowledging that he was lucky that nothing worse came of it. But, maybe I'm completely out of touch. Maybe I'm missing the point. I mean, some people are going to say, oh, well, you're a, white cis male. What do you know? Well, as I say, I may not be black, but I did stand out fearing for my bloody life with my black mate, and I would have been in hospital just the same as he would have been. And let's be honest here. While you're going after people like Liam Neeson, You're distracting from the real issues here. The fact that there genuinely are problems with racism in our societies, whether it be America, whether it be France, Germany, UK. We've all got these issues. And I know, specifically in the UK, since Brexit, the rise of racist attacks is on the up because we've given oxygen to these idiots. So I suppose what I'm saying in my rambling way here is get a grip, please. Let's actually look at this for what it is. Let's stop vilifying somebody for trying to be honest. For God's sake, what would you rather have? People be honest or people hide it and engage in kind of surreptitious racism? What would you rather? Somebody like Liam Neeson who's upfront about how he felt, or would you rather the guy who pretends to be all smiley and happy to your face and actually is having a right go at you behind your back? Because I've known people like that as well. I used to work with a guy who used to be saying all the things under the sun about black people, and then he'd walk up the road and wave and smile at the guy who used to deliver our overalls, who surprisingly was black. What would you rather? Someone who was honest and admitted their fault, or a fucking hypocrite who would hide it from you and then do everything in their power to hurt you when you're not looking? Seriously. Anyway, look, this is, as I say, a rambling video. I didn't script this in the slightest. It's not my usual thing. I know this is an emotive subject, and some people are going to come on here perhaps and have a go at me. And look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've got this completely wrong. And if I have got it wrong, explain to me how I am wrong. Please. I want to know. But anyway, that's me done. I'm going to go and grab a cup of tea, and I will speak to you guys in the next one. Next one will be about games, I promise. Bye.